Welcome back. Let's start immediately. But before we start, let me first welcome my dear guest live here in the studio, Dr. Ahmed ELLEISSY, International Economic Strategic Management Consultant. Thank you very much for being with us, sir.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
And let's start immediately. As I said, we do have a lot to speak about, but regarding the Israeli-Iranian file and the conflicts, it's not only about what's going on between the two countries. It's about the Middle East region. It's about the whole region. It's about the instability of the Middle East and the surrounding area. And I think we learned by the hard way that whenever something is happening in this side of the planet, it's going to affect the other side of the planet. Before going into details, can we say what are the most common repercussions which are going to result or resulted already from those 8 days of war?
Actually, this is a very good question, yet it's quite hard to answer it. Because so far, what's going on? What is going on is we have Israel and Iran. Each of them has a huge advantage over the other in one element. Israel has a huge advantage in the air force, and Iran has a huge advantage in the missile launching and attacking by missiles. This cannot go on like this, and this is a virtual or a vicious circle, if you want. So there is, as we say in economics, we need a delta in the sense of a change or a trigger. Something has to happen, otherwise this is going to go like this forever. Iran bombs by night, Israel returns the favor during the day, and we will continue like this forever. So something has to happen to break this endless loop. Then the question is, what's going to happen? Nobody really knows, but we have several scenarios.
Yeah.
So if we start with unfortunately, the worst possible scenario is that the U.S. will engage into this war, and will engage, it will obviously engage to make a difference, and the most probable step, as President Trump announced, would be using the heavy equipment that the U.S. has to attack the Iranian nuclear facilities.
Sites.
Then, if this happens, again, we have two probabilities. We have one probability that that strike will be successful, and the other probability that it will not be successful. If it is successful, then basically what we're saying is we're going to have a very large nuclear facility filled with active plutonium as going to be broken open into our region. And that is going to be disastrous almost on all elements. So we will have so many people dying because of the radiation. We're going to have, as we've seen from the experience in other parts, whether Chernobyl or the nuclear accident, even after Hiroshima, we had the nuclear accident, Fukushima, yes.
In Japan?
Yes. So we're going to have a disaster. We're going to have so many people dying. We're going to have an after effect into huge cancers, and we're going to have all the environmental surrounding polluted. Okay. Is it going to stop here? No, because this region that is going to get polluted, God forbid, has about, depends how large the diameter of the region would be, but we're talking about almost a good 50% of the oil and gas production globally.
This is it.
So who would want to go there and work on extracting oil in these conditions? Probably nobody. So we were going to have a huge global shortage in that sense. That's one scenario. The other scenario we go back to is if the U.S. does strike and it fails, what will happen? It will happen that Iran will retaliate, and the most low-hanging fruit, if the expression would apply here for Iran, would be to close the Hormuz Strait, which is, again, at least 20% of the oil and petrol of the world go through, which means, again, a huge shortage in power globally and a huge increase in price. Some estimates will...
And it's already done. I mean, since the very first hours after the tension started, the oil prices hiked.
Yes, but yes, it did. And it hiked and went up by about 12%, from about 65, 66 to over 70 US dollar per barrel. But this is not the magnitude we're talking about here.
Sure.
We're talking about something that will make the petrol reach almost 150 US dollars. So that's a different sort of leap altogether, not 10, 12%. No, we're talking about like 100% increase. And that automatically
But
will...
who is going to be the worst affected by this? And because of that, I think that the talks which took place in Geneva yesterday between the E3 and Abbas Araghchi, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, the Iranian foreign minister, and today in the OIC meeting in Istanbul, because of all what you've said, sir, because all sides are losers.
Absolutely. So again, we are talking within the two scenarios. If the US gets engaged into the war, and the two probabilities coming out of this, we go a little bit to the right and we look at the scenario where the US does not get engaged into the war. Odds are that the scene that we're seeing today will continue for a while, but then again we need a delta in. We need a disruption of some sort to that vicious circle
of violence.
Absolutely.
But before going to this, sir, if you permit me to ask here, because this is, I think, a question which runs into the minds of people who are not experts and really are looking at the whole issue from, let's say, a panoramic view, far from the details, I mean. We all know the sanctions imposed on Iran, and with the crippled economy because of these sanctions, do you think that Iran is capable to continue with this for a while, as you have said, or these sanctions already crippled the Iranian force regarding the military side, I mean?
Okay. I lived in Iran.
And because of this, I'm asking.
Sure. And it was a very interesting experience. And I can tell you that anybody you'll talk to from the Iranians, they say the US could have not done us a better favor, because unlike so many other countries, we became really, really self-dependent. So we are totally independent almost from the rest of the world. So we have our own even Windows for the computer. We have our own everything, actually, and they're getting by. The straight answer to your question, which is the sanctions started to get imposed on Iran in 1979, after the famous issue during Carter presidency of the American embassy in Tehran. And we are, what, 3 and 20 and 25, we're like almost 50 years later. Okay, the Iranians are still going. Okay, that did not stop them for 50 years.
Building military capabilities is something different, and this
is
what I am asking about. Because today there were statements which were released by the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, as he was having phone calls with different sides. Here I'm talking about his phone call with French President Emmanuel Macron, and he said that nothing is going to stop us from proceeding in our nuclear program. This is number one. Number two, they are going to do whatever it takes to defend their country against the Israeli attacks. So talking with this kind of confidence, taking into consideration that America, as you've kindly mentioned, can interfere, and Trump said it that in 2 weeks he is going to decide whether he is going to give a hand in this or no. So this confidence is really eye-catchy and ear-catchy. So
okay, Actually, we need to drill down a little bit in the statement of the Iranian president. Because, again, what's most important is what was not said in these statements. So he said, nothing will stop
Number
us
one, yeah.
from going on with our nuclear program.
Number one.
What he never said is, in that statement, is what is the nuclear program, because nobody knows what it is. So if he goes back to like 3% or 4% level, maybe this is what he's talking about. The whole world has a problem of him being at 60.
Yeah.
3 might be negotiated, I think. Okay, so again, it's very tricky. Iranians are very tricky when it comes to negotiation. That's number one. His second statement was that they will continue to defend the country. Who will not continue to defend his country anywhere in the world? Last time the Iranians went to war in the 1980s against Iraq, it stayed for almost 8 years, and it ended up with what we call inconclusive outcome. Where it ended is,
I think he meant, sir, the calls to return back to the negotiating tables in Moscow with Omani mediation. He said that no, it's nonsense, it's absurdity to speak even about that while the attacks are still going on,
but
and
also,
exchanging or trading missiles.
Again, he's very smart. Their selection of words is very smart. So he, first of all, let's also draw a line between what's being said into the media, because honestly, I don't believe that President Trump will declare a deadline after which he will attack. Either he will attack tomorrow or after, or he will not attack at all. But, you know, the idea of giving them 14 days before basically blowing them off, I don't buy it. This could be a way of applying extra pressure for the negotiation. Again, what he said, the Iranian president said, I will not negotiate until or unless the bombing is being stopped. And he never said stopped permanently, stopped for 2 hours, stopped for 1 day. He never said this. So in the most simple ways is, you know, you stop it for 1 day, we negotiate, and then we go back, reach an agreement, and we go back and apply it. Again, there's a lot of things that is being said, yet it is not really, how would you say, comprehensive enough. There is always, in every statement he makes, there is a back door.
Sure.
So it needs to be, you know, weighted very, very carefully, because we're not really sure what is the exit in there. And I think personally, the idea of I cannot negotiate, it actually goes without saying, but he never said until the war stops permanently. I mean, we could have a truce for a week, and we negotiate an agreement, and we will negotiate in this week. If we don't reach an agreement, the war can restart again. And we saw this happening with Hamas and Gaza. So a truce is possible for a period of time to have a negotiation, and then we go back to war if we don't reach an agreement. So that's also extremely and very possible.
So you said a very important statement here. You stated that I don't think that the Americans or Trump is, I mean, he is not going to set a deadline or to say that I'm going to wait for 14 days and then I'm going to decide whether to interfere or not.
He's not revealing his deck of cards. He will never reveal his cards.
Okay, and because of this, I think that this can be breaking news. The United States is moving B-2 bombers to the Pacific island of Guam. 2 U.S. officials, they said that to reporters, as President Donald Trump weighs whether the United States should take part in Israeli strikes against Iran. That B-2 can be equipped to carry America's 30,000-pound massive ordnance penetrators designed to destroy targets deep underground. This can be considered as breaking news according to what you've just said?
Sure, it is actually breaking news regardless of what I said. But, and I can claim that I'm somebody who knows 1 or 2 things about negotiation. If I wanted to put the other side under pressure, I would do exactly the same move. You know, the big guns are outside. Let's go to
Negotiating table.
to the negotiating table. But you
Okay.
know what? Here it is. You
Yeah.
can see it. You know, you can smell
A
it. You
show
can
of
feel.
power, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You
And
know,
this
it's
is the
there.
way. And this
You
is
are
the way.
putting him under tremendous pressure when you do that. And again, it's like I'm moving my weaponry and arsenal around. You know, I'm just moving them around. There is no harm in that. I don't need anybody's permission to move this type of planes or this other type of plane. Because all of a sudden, all the media, U.S., Middle East, everybody became an expert on the sort of planes that can carry which sort of bombs. All of a sudden, everybody is repeating the same
Blah, blah, blah.
points, not blah, 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 the same point that, you know, it's only B-52 that can carry the, I don't remember the model number, but this big bomb that could attack the underground.
The underground, because
Yeah.
I think there were scientists or experts who said about Fordo, for example, that it is 100 meter or something underground. So to attack it, it's something which is not going to be that easy. And Grossi, the IAA chief, yesterday, he had also a say in the UN Security Council session yesterday, and he was speaking about that. And he had also said that he had some contacts with the Gulf states expressing worries about what's going on. And
Rightly
this
so.
is completely
Rightly so.
normal.
Rightly
Sure.
so. So again, I think it's maneuvering. I think it's a negotiation tactic, or not, or not. We don't really know at this stage. The only way to know is to really go inside President
Let's go
Trump's
to
brains.
the things which we really know about oil prices, about recession or depression, about supply chain crisis, about energy in general crisis. Throughout those 8 days, or after those 8 days, which I think are going to be followed by other days. We hope that they are going only to be days of fighting or exchanging missiles. These things I mentioned, to what extent they are now suffering negative impacts, and on which countries is it going to differentiate between developed and developing countries, or it's going to be all the same? And here in the Middle East, and particularly in Egypt, what we can do to avoid more negative repercussions?
These are several questions, you know. Let me try to tackle them one by one.
Yeah, one by one.
So far, there is a little bit of effect, which I, again, would I have a lot of respect for the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and I think the move that he has made to increase the production in order to reduce the pricing before this action is extremely helpful. That the petrol prices today are within an acceptable range. It is true that they went up, but 10-12% is a range that is, let's say, manageable. Who will be so as long as we are in the range of 10-12%, again, this is not a severe crisis. It is not helping, but it is not a severe crisis. If again we go to the 150, the Strait of Hormuz gets blocked, then the issue will be bigger. Who will be affected? I think the whole world will be affected, not only our region. Our region will be affected in terms of selling region or the oil generating region, but yet the rest of the world is the oil consuming part of the world, and all of them will be negatively affected. So it will be a negative.
And I don't think that Europe already have recovered from what the Russian-Ukrainian conflict has done to them regarding the energy issue. True?
They haven't, because it's not finished yet. I mean, this is the war still going. We don't hear about it because it's not the number one news today, because it has been going for a couple of years now. But and the new news is obviously what's happening in Iran. So this is not the number one news, but the conflict between Ukraine and Russia is still very much present and still very much going. Let's focus a little bit on Egypt. We obviously we've seen the issue about the reduced liquefied gas coming into Egypt,
Yeah.
and again, that is the #1 source of power to generate electricity, and which the consumption of electricity goes higher in summer because of the temperature and use of the air conditions. And I have to commend the government in their fast and preemptive action, that they went and got new sources or different sources, and the idea of the ships that will liquefy the gas, and in order to avoid, or if we have to get into a crisis, I mean, to really minimize the effect of this crisis. So that was a very good step in preemption of the reduction of the supplying of petrol. We have the Canal of Suez, because again, back to the earlier scenarios, the Houthis, which are very pro-Iran, if Iran gets hit, then there is a very high probability also they will close the Strait of Bab
The
el-Mandeb.
military spokesperson said it today, only
Oh, he
few
did?
hours ago.
Okay.
Yahya Sarriah said it in a statement in videos.
Which it's
in
not a
his
surprise to
video, and
anybody.
it's not
That
a
was very
surprise,
much
of course.
expected. So how would that affect Egypt? That would affect Egypt that the total traffic going through the Suez Canal will be totally blocked. That is one of the main 5 sources of foreign currency pumped into the Egyptian economy. So we're going to have a reduction of about 12 billion US dollar on annualized basis. On annualized basis. So it depends on how long that situation will last for. So that is a direct effect, which will probably mean a change in the foreign currency exchange rate, which will be reflected on most of the goods and services that Egypt imports in foreign currency, which will mean a reverse in the declining inflation that we successfully have been reaching in the past few months. So again, it's probability based on another probability that leads to a domino effect.
Yeah.
It is extremely hard to see the full picture, because there is so many
Or to
variables.
see it clearly, at least. But sir, here what you're telling me, that we are all going to suffer. I mean, there is a global issue. True? I can say it this way. Or why France, Germany,
you are absolutely right.
and England are going to have this keenness to meet with Irakchi yesterday, and to hold the talks, and to continue with contacts, and to have today phone calls with the Iranian president, and to continue with that in the OIC meeting in Istanbul, where I think hundreds of foreign ministers are there to meet, whether to address the gathering or even to meet in separate meetings on the sidelines of the meeting. Why? Because it's going to be a global issue, and already the planet did not recover until the moment from neither COVID-19 repercussions nor the Russian-Ukrainian war. So
let me try to reflect on your question, which is very valid. Yes, the whole world will suffer in all cases, yet if somebody gets a cold and he has a headache and a runny nose, he's suffering. God forbid if somebody also gets a cancer, he's suffering. So both of them are suffering, but the magnitude of sufferings is
totally
very different,
yes,
based on what is going to happen next. And something has to happen next, because the idea of this country bombing by night, the other one answers it and bombs back during the day, this cannot last forever. There has to be some sort of a delta in, there has to be some sort of an intervention in one way or another.
And that's exactly what the G7 meetings were asking Trump to do, to interfere for the best interest of the planet, to interfere, to put an end to what's going on. And the G7, I think the meeting was to focus mainly on economic issues. But the Iranian-Israeli issue was on top of the
It's an
agenda of
economic
talks.
issue, by the way. It's an economic issue. At the end of the day, at the bottom of it, it's an economic issue. It is true that it's military and bombs and planes and fighter jets and everything, but at the core of it, it's an economic issue. Yes, they did ask Trump to do that. He did not want to sign on the meeting summary or the agreement or the final declaration of the meeting, and then he excused himself and left the day early, basically finding an excuse and saying that, you know, I have important stuff to do, which was a way to exit the meeting. I personally thought he did not, because he was due to meet with Zelensky in the next day. I personally did not think he wanted to meet with Zelensky, and he found this as a good pretext to get out. Whichever way it is, he did not listen to the G7. Yet I liked his statement, because actually I did mention it before in one of my meetings, that kicking Russia out, even because of out of the what used to be called the G8, was not the right thing to do, and he made the same statement, because whether we like it or not, kicking them out of this forum will just weaken the forum. It's not going to weaken Russia, because Russia will be as big as it is, and will continue
and Trump and Putin had a 50-minute call right after the conflict started with the Israeli strikes on Iran. So whenever there is something which they they must tackle, they do not have a choice.
Yeah. I mean, Russia will continue to be a major oil producer, a major economic power, a major player on the global landscape of diplomacy. So just excluding them is never a solution.
Why you have just said it's an economic issue, beside all the military stuff? Why you said it that way? It is an economic issue.
Because it is. Look at.
Is it because how much Iran bleed every day from its own money, or Israel with the same story, or it's much more than that?
Okay, this is a very unique sort of war. Unlike most wars, the two countries are not adjacent. They don't have a joint frontier. Again, if we take a step back and ask, what is the ultimate goal? Is one of them trying to take a land from the other, like Egypt, you know, with Israel for Sinai, like Syria for Golan Heights, or even Russia and Ukraine for I mean, what is the objective? Is no matter how technologically advanced Israel is, with like 8 million people, are they gonna wipe 92 million people out of the face of the earth in Iran? What is the ultimate objective? Will they invade them? Will the Americans invade them? I really cannot see or visualize a scenario that goes into that direction.
They claim that they are doing so on behalf of the world, to stop the Iranian enrichment of uranium and to possess a nuclear weapon. And they said today, one of the provocative statements they always release, oh, we delayed the enrichment, or we delayed the uranium, the nuclear program of Iran for at least 2 years with what we have done in the last 8 days. So
maybe yes, maybe no, but we cannot all forget that in 2012, that's almost 13 years ago, when Prime Minister Netanyahu, and this is, I think, we owe to the new technology in media. Prime Minister Netanyahu went in with a funny, almost cartoonish drawing of a bomb, like how would the child with their comic would draw a bomb, and said Iran is a few weeks away from developing a nuclear bomb. That was, if I'm not mistaken, in March or April 2012. So that was 13 years ago. So that's so many 2 weeks. have passed since then. So, you know, it's very hard to know who to believe. And again, there was a very interesting statement by the head of the, not the CIA, the National Information, I think, in the US, when she said, she was testifying in front of the Congress a few days ago, 2-3 days ago, and she said that our intelligence actually tells us that Iran is not working to develop
a
nuclear bomb. I think it's very important for the US that they do not repeat the story of Saddam Hussein. They need to understand the Middle Eastern culture. They need to understand the pride that the Middle Eastern, including the Iranians, would have, as Saddam Hussein did. And I think it will be a huge mistake if they go and destroy the Persian, actually, civilization, almost 5,000 years old, because of a rumor or because of an analysis without...
or because of just supporting their favorite ally. Well, sir, I enjoyed our discussion, and I hope that all this is going to end soon, and we are going to listen to the voice of reason to enjoy peace and stability in the Middle East. I hope so.
There are many reasons and many logics, so I hope that the good reason is the one that prevails at the end of the day. Let's see.
Let's see. Well, we were very much delighted and honored to have with us live here in the studio my dear guest, Dr. Ahmed ELLEISSY, our strategic management consultant. Now, I'm going to leave you with the most important economic events which took place in the past 7 days. Till we meet again same time on Nile TV International. Many thanks for watching. This was Nurmeen Abdurrahman.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli inspected the project to establish the first factory in Africa and the Middle East to manufacture ultrasound and MRI devices, located in the 6th of October city. This is an important step towards strengthening Egypt's position as a regional center for medical technology. Dr. Khalid Abdel Ghaffar, Deputy Prime Minister for Human Development and Minister of Health and Population, stated that the project is a milestone in the history of Egyptian medical manufacturing. It will directly contribute to supporting the healthcare sector's infrastructure and reducing dependence on imports, thus supporting market stability and providing advanced healthcare solutions for Egyptian citizens. Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Al-Mashat, confirmed that Egypt will rank first in Africa and 9th in the world in attracting foreign direct investment in 2024, noting that the region is undergoing radical transformations and that Egypt is determined to move forward with reform. She explained that the World Investment Report issued by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, indicated that Egypt ranked 9th after the United States, first place, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Luxembourg, Canada, Brazil and Australia in attracting foreign direct investment, FDI, in 2024, with investments totaling $47 billion, supported by Ras Al Hikma project and deals concluded by the state last year. In a strong push towards strengthening its position as a regional industrial hub, the Suez Canal Economic Zone attracted 3 new industrial deals in a single day, with a total investment exceeding $238 million in the textile, industrial packaging and solar energy sectors. Engineer Walid Gamaluddin, chairman of the General Authority for the Suez Canal Economic Zone, signed a contract with a Turkish company to establish a spinning and weaving factory, with investments totaling $18 million and fully self-financed. Another contract was signed to establish a factory for the production of industrial textiles and plastic packaging materials in the same zone, with investments totaling $20 million. The authority also signed a contract with a Chinese company to establish an industrial complex for the production of solar energy supplies within the Chinese Taida zone, with investments amounting to $200 million. This agreement aims to meet local and regional demand for solar energy technologies in light of the global trend towards a green transformation. Egypt plans to transform the Gergub area into a global industrial development engine. Currently, studies are underway to establish a Turkish industrial zone with investments estimated at approximately $7 billion, in addition to a green hydrogen production plant with Belgian investments estimated at approximately $26 billion. Plans also include establishing a reassembly zone for used cars imported from Korea and Japan, in preparation for export to the African market. The plans also include establishing the first bluefin tuna farming zone in the Middle East and establishing a series of new tourist cities similar to Ras Al Hikma. Lieutenant General Osama Rabia, chairman of the Suez Canal Authority, announced the start of a new phase to restore the transit of giant container ships. The canal witnessed the transit of the CMA, CGM, OSI, RIS with a total tonnage of 154,000 tons. This transit is the culmination of the Suez Canal Authority's ongoing marketing efforts aimed at attracting giant vessels back to the safest and most efficient route through the canal. The recent announcement of a 15% discount for 3 months of container ships with a net tonnage exceeding 130,000 tons, whether laden or empty, has contributed to this. The European Parliament adopted the final reading of the decision to grant Egypt the second tranche of the overall €4 billion financial support package provided by the European Union. For his part, Ambassador Ahmed ELLEISSY, Egypt's ambassador to the European Union, stated that the European Parliament's majority vote in favor of the second €4 billion financial support package for Egypt came in appreciation of Egypt's efforts to support stability and peace in the Middle East and Africa, and to emphasize the shared interests of both parties in strengthening their comprehensive strategic partnership. An official source at the Ministry of Transport announced that the government is preparing to launch the first unified smart card system to integrate public transport in Greater Cairo. The smart card will allow the use of a single payment method to travel between various public transport networks, providing a more flexible experience for citizens. Official implementation is expected to begin during the fourth quarter of 2025.